Hello, hello, hello. We are
Hello,
so happy to
everyone.
have you with us. Today, we are kicking off the new year in food safety and quality in a new way. We're so happy to have you here. So feel free to share in the comments, where are you joining us from today? So if you haven't found out from our post, we are going live every Wednesday at noon Eastern to talk with you about sustainable food safety culture. We know that the buzzword the past few years has been food safety culture. And yet we all still want to know, like, what exactly does it mean? How do we do it? What gets in the way? But most importantly, like, how do we move forward? So, because we bet that your 2022 goals include some activity around food safety culture, like, are we right? Today, we're going to talk about those goals and how to really drive them forward through several planning stages. So we are excited to have you here and welcome, Eric. We're glad to have you here from Pennsylvania.
Hi, Eric. Good to see you.
And as we go forward, if you have comments or anything, we all know, hopefully, put them in the chat and we will go through those at a few different times. So,
Yes.
all right. If you don't know us already, we're Tia and Jill. We are your go to team for food safety, quality, leadership, and culture. I'm a self proclaimed food safety nerd. Any other nerds out there with me? But really, I turned to leadership coaching because what I learned was school and certifications just didn't prepare me, and it doesn't prepare us to be the leaders that we need to be in food safety and quality. But we've solved that problem here with Catalyst. So I'm going to have Tia. Tia, share with us a little bit
Yes.
about you and your background.
Yes. So, for those that do not know me, I'm Tia, and I'm a leader in food safety and quality. And I really focus on data and proven processes to help organizations build and integrate food safety and quality systems within their organization in the way that they do work without unnecessary disruptions. So I have a passion for people development and process development, and this kind of folds into the fabric of what we've created at Catalyst. So I'm super excited about meeting you all, being with you all each Wednesday, learning
Mhm.
about you, bringing more topics and having more conversations, because that's really what it's about, right? Like, we
Mhm.
all use the phrase hashtag better together, and that's really what it is, right? Like, I think conversations have been around food safety is not really a competitive advantage. So over the years, food safety individuals have shared more and more best practices and knowledge sharing. So we're super excited about this. And I'm excited to be doing it with my partner, Jill.
Yeah, we're so excited. And we're excited, Brian. We see that you've joined us. Thank
Hi,
you. We
Brian.
love your food safety chat as well.
Yes.
Um,
Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern.
yep. So if you haven't caught Brian's, make sure you jump over there on Friday as well. So you may be wondering, because you've probably seen a few things T and I have posted lately, like, what are we doing and why are we doing this? And really the big thing is that Tia and I, we have lived food safety and quality. Like, we have been in manufacturing, we have been in big companies and in small companies. And that has really fueled this passion that we found with each other, that we want to support food companies and food professionals in a new way. And we're not just consultants, we're coaches and leaders, and we really want to look at that bigger picture. Because, sure, right, you maybe want to update your allergen program or get GFSI certification, but if you don't have a bigger plan for your food safety quality team, you may not get the impact that you want in your organization. And that's really our sweet spot. Like, we have the tools and the experience with strategic planning and tactical and operational and leadership. And that's really where we focus. So we know there is something special brewing with Catalyst. And our business is really all about building sustainable food safety cultures, not just programs. And we believe and really know that it starts with you. It starts with you as the food safety quality leader, and you can make sustainable food safety culture happen. Through this LinkedIn Live every week, We are going to talk, and talk more about what that's like. And we want to hear from you to share and learn from each other.
Yes, absolutely. So make sure you're putting your thoughts, your comments in the comment section. Good morning, Tim. Thanks for joining us. We're super excited to have you here. So we're excited about today. So today we're starting off the new year, and people say new year, new me, new goals, new aspirations is really a new start. And whether or not you set New Year's goals, right, for your own personal self, we know our businesses have their own goals each year. So in food safety and quality, we start off with big goals each year, right? Whether it's overhauling a food safety or quality management program, being a part of an expansion, or having big dreams to build bench and strengths in our organization, right? We have big goals because that's what we do in food safety and quality. We want to build our companies. We want to push our companies forward. And that's what we see in the organization. So, but we know no matter how excited we are or how much we're dreading our yearly goals, right? We hear the stats that only 10 to 15% ever make it across the finish line. And sometimes it's because your organization or even yourself needs to pivot, right? But a lot of times it's because we really are not planning. We're not planning for those times that we might need a pivot or competing priorities, or we're not really planning to see what could come down the road to knock us off track. So we want to really share the 3 parts of planning to get across the finish line with food safety and quality goals. That's our topic for today. And we really want to dig deep into strategic planning, tactical planning, and operational planning.
Yeah. Tia, it blows my mind every time I hear that statistic that only 10 to 15% of goals, and that doesn't matter if it's like, if you're doing the New Year's resolution thing or if it's like a company goal, that so few actually get to completion.
Yeah.
And if anything, that just, to me, that just calls out like how do we help shift out of our normal habits and routines? Because if we want to see something different, you on the call, you all know this, right? We have to intentionally shift some way. And we have to do that and have that accountability and make that new pathway and have that, I'm going to say, grind to really embed where we want to go. Otherwise, we're just going to be right back over here doing what we do. And that's why I love that we're talking about this planning process today, because here's what I know from working with Tia, working with clients, teams, like we guarantee you will have more success by using these steps than if you don't. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily mean 100% success because there's so many factors and it all still falls on you got to do the work.
Yep.
But right, these are the parts that sometimes we pick and choose different parts that we want to pull in and use, or we don't have time for that one. And that really influences where we can go. So what we're going to share today, some of them aren't going to be new, but we bring a different perspective. Once again, it's because we've lived it, right, Tia?
Yeah, been there.
Yeah. And so we want to challenge you too to follow these steps for one of your goals. And so we would love to know, what is one goal that you have for this year? And we'd love for you to share it in the chat.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Mike. I see you in there.
Hi, Theo.
Yes, hi. And you're right. If you fail to plan, then you're really planning to fail. And so, and that's what I see, right, with my clients or even in my career. A lot of people just want to, let's jump to the doing. Like, we know what we need to do. Let's just go do it. But if you don't plan out your process, who's going to be there? What kind of roadblocks are you going to run into? If you don't plan that, it's easy to get sidetracked. So let's jump into it. So let's first start with strategic. So this is where you should start, is with your strategy. Think about, what are your big goals for the year? What do you want to accomplish? Not just in food safety and quality, but what is your company trying to do? Where are they trying to lead? If you are thinking, man, we really need an allergen control plan, but your company is looking to eliminate all allergens, that's probably not a good place to start, right? So really thinking about that. And then as you're thinking about your food safety and quality goals, like, again, how does it fit into the organization? But are you going to have to do some work to really integrate it into your organization?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you want to introduce something new to the organization that people hadn't thought about, but you're bringing in new experience, you're bringing in a new perspective. You know, how are you going to talk to key stakeholders about it and get buy-in, right? And it might be buy-in in the sense of like, hey, I need to work with maintenance this year, so I need it to be on their priority list as well. Or it could be in terms of funds, right? Like, where is this money going to come from? Is it a part of your budget, which makes it a little bit easier? If you manage the budget, you can kind of divvy out your funds. But say that, okay, I want to work with maintenance and I need to use the maintenance budget. Well, then you have to use a little bit of influence. So what is your strategy around that piece, and thinking through that process from a strategy standpoint?
So Tia, I don't know about you, but I've had companies where doing this type of planning was kind of something we did corporately. Like, we knew that there were goals that were going to be kind of handed down from above that we would be participating in. But I've also worked at companies where if there were strategic plans, I was not aware. Have you encountered the same thing?
Absolutely. Especially when it comes to food safety and quality. You know, I've worked with organizations that did not incorporate food safety and quality into the way that they do work. They just weren't at that stage yet. So my goals were kind of floating over here when the company, like, they will roll out goals and it's really focused on, you know, what we know, right? Like operations, sales, and marketing, right? Like, those are the top three things that we know companies are going to have goals around, but food safety and quality is not integrated at all. So either I'm left out of those conversations and I don't even hear about them, or they get rolled down and I'm like, oh, you guys, we haven't talked about food safety and quality yet. So I've definitely been in those conversations. And if you're there, I would say you need to start the strategy planning process earlier than your counterparts, because you're going to have to spend some time massaging in food safety and quality goals into the broader picture before they drop their overall strategic goals.
Oh, yeah, I love that, because that's one of the things I learned and was probably one of the biggest stumbling blocks for my team when I was an early food safety quality leader. Because we would have some goals handed down from on high, and it would be things like, we're going to redo our branding, so we need all new labels, or we're putting in a new line, or we're doing an expansion, so we need to go through like sanitary design and getting equipment and new sanitation practices and getting everything set up. But yet a lot of those things were what I learned were a lot of those things were actually part of our standard work. Like, we still always look at sanitary design. We always look at labels.
Right.
But the capacity that our team needed to do kind of that routine work just massively expanded.
Yes.
And so how to flow that through for our team, because we too would have goals like, hey, we want to look at bench strength. We want to build skills. But what we struggled with was this capacity issue.
Yeah.
So what have you found? You know, we've talked about this, like, what type of
Yes.
things have you found that work well? Because I think a lot of people kind of get caught in that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't move the things forward that I want to because I've got all these company priorities that don't necessarily include improving or enhancing our team function.
Yes, Jill, I love that you brought this up, because that's a huge piece of when you think about a long-term strategy, right? So, like, not even just what you want to accomplish this year, which might be, man, I have so many priorities coming down from the corporate level or from other functions, and it's just me, or it's just a team of 3, or maybe it's a team of 10, but your organization is so large that you really can only focus on the company priorities, which are outside of food safety and quality. So sometimes your strategy needs to expand, or I would say you should always have a strategy that expands over multiple years, depending on the size of your organization. So if you're looking at year 1, and you're saying, okay, my team doesn't have the capacity. We're going to have to either add more resources or take things off of our plates. You need to spend time planning for that, asking yourself questions around what type of technical skills do I need on the team? What technical skills do I have? What type of leadership skills do I need? Do I need more manager of people? Do I need more people that can influence outside of food safety and quality? Do I need more executors on my team? And those people have different leadership type qualities that you need to look for. All of that goes into the strategy planning for what you need for years to come. And I definitely recommend having at least a 3-year plan where you know where you want to get to within a 3-year time frame to get you set up for your next level. So, I love that you brought that up, because some people kind of think about it on like, okay, where's my allergen control going? Where's my sanitation going? Sanitary design, like we need to embed that into our process. People think about in terms of just technical or just programs. But in reality, technical and leadership skills and how you integrate that into the organization should also be a part of your conversation around strategic planning.
And I think that's a really important part as well, because I think one of the things that we find is that when we start talking strategy, because we know we need to go into the details of how things work, we often blend these things together. And so there's, I don't want to say gray area, but I think it's helpful for people to be mindful that when we talk about the strategy, we might not have all the answers on how we're actually going to do it. And I think sometimes that's, at least for me, I could see that's where people can get hung up, because we may say something like, we need to balance workloads, or we need to build bench strength. And that can be a strategy in itself. Like, those are the places that we're going. We have to have that bigger dream and vision. And now when we start talking about some of those more tactical pieces, right, that's where some of those next things come in with, well, how do we create space to do that?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like when you're talking about these bigger topics in strategy, it's, you're not doing anything at this moment other than brainstorming and thinking about where you want to go. And that's where organizations run into problems, right? Like where they try to jump to doing, where it's like, yes, we know we want to do this, let's go do it. And then they run into problems where, your counterparts are not on board, or someone doesn't really understand what you're trying to get at. If you had done the work early on in the strategy piece, getting a clear vision, communicating to all key stakeholders, all those pieces are a part of strategic planning and getting people on the same page. If you had done that work before, you now wouldn't be going back and wasting time doing it. And I love what Tim said around, it's never only one solution or only one person in or only one department. I think that's a big call out as you think about what your goals are, is that it's never only just you. It's never only just food safety and quality, right? Because we're not the people that are making the product. We're sometimes we're not even the ones doing the checks, right? Like someone else is executing the work that we're kind of putting on. So it's so important to think about it in the sense of like, it's not just one entity. You have to really integrate it into multiple parts of the organization. So I love your goal, Tim, around new technology that may help your clients. That's a huge piece of building food safety culture, in my opinion. And, I definitely feel like new technology or using technology that companies might even have should be a part of a food safety and quality strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and Tia, I think what you've hit that nail on the head, right? About and Tim, how do we integrate more people into the plan? Because we work across everyone. And, so often, at least in my former life, I felt like I was kind of shoestringing things together. I was pulling from here, pulling from here, but yet I was shortchanged over there to try to move one thing forward. So when we start talking about like, how do we put those pieces together? Like, how do we actually start working to get everybody moving in that same direction from just how we're going to do it and what will actually be done? Not doing it yet, but that planning part.
Right, absolutely. And then before we move on to tactical, which is really the how that Jill's talking about, I see Felix. Hey, Felix. Hi, Corey. Corey, she brought up a good point with doing a lot of planning with me in Q1. Corey is a consultant. And even as consultant, I know there's a lot of consultants even listening in. You also must do the strategy planning for your business, right? So really understanding like, where do you want to go in the next year, in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years, and how do you want to connect with more people, more clients, and even what you want to work on. So this type of planning process, these 3 steps, really work in any type of business, whether or not you're working in food or not, right? Like you needed to really do these steps to make sure that you're accomplishing your goals.
Heck, Tia, I was just sharing with you the other day. I have my personal goals on a card, and every year I go through and I look at each category and say, all right, that's the big picture. How am I going to reach that? What does this year look like? And I have them broken out to a 1, 3, 5, and 10-year plan. So even though it's something we talk about typically related to business, right? The way we approach it, the mindset, the tools, they actually are so dual purpose in many areas.
Right, exactly. So we talked about the big picture, right? Really looking at your top strategy, right? Which is your strategy plan. Then we move on to tactical planning. And so tactical is really around the how, and exactly what needs to be done. So you're really starting to think through, how would you integrate a new technology into your organization? Who are going to be the main key stakeholders? Who may lead it? You might start thinking about, we have a large plant that we might want to execute it at. We have a small plant that we might want to execute and learn from both. This is really thinking about, again, how are you going to get this work done over a certain amount of time frame? You're not yet doing it, but you're writing down some few action plans, something that's, again, a little more tactical, where you are writing down who may be a good fit. What technical skills do you need, right? We talked about like, okay, we know we need to increase technical knowledge in the organization. Now it's time to think about, well, what technical knowledge do we need? Do you have a technical assessment, right? Like that's one of the things that we'll do with our clients, is walk through a technical assessment for all the food safety and quality individuals for organization. So you'll know where you are and where you need to get to in the future. Have you done that work yet? Maybe a part of that action plan is that, no, I'm going to go out and do that technical assessment, and then build a strategy for year 2 based on what we need. So that's step 2. How's that worked in your career, Jill?
That was a really pivotal part of some work that we did back. Actually, I started it when I was a lab manager, because one of the things that we found is working in a small lab, we had people that were very tied to the specific work that they did. For example, we had one person who did a lot of water testing. We had somebody who did a lot of the instrumental chemistry testing. We had someone who did a lot of the shelf life testing because it was all micro-based and some other things. And what would happen is, you've all run into this, right? They go on vacation and we're trying to just kind of piece the things together until they get back to move it to the next step. And what we said was, we just can't go on like that. Like, we have to come up with a way to build bench strength. And so it was fantastic because by getting the whole lab involved, and not everybody was happy, right? We all know that we have some comfort in keeping things close to us that we know. And there was a little bit of uncertainty about, like, how would things shift if other people knew what I was all doing and could they even do it? So we started with technical assessment. We looked at different levels to say, am I familiar with it? Can I do part of it? Can I do the full thing? And we just started out really basic and had people rate themselves And we had others come together then and say, well, this is really where I see your skill set versus this, or yep, I agree with that, or I think you're further than you think you are.
Right.
That way, once again, it was that buy-in to say, where do we build? How do we even know where we need to focus people and their development?
Yeah. And that buy-in is really a huge part of tactical. Trying to put together a plan on how you're going to get that buy-in. And sometimes it's at the team level where, I've had an experience where, I possibly needed to eliminate a lab technician position. And so we were going from 9 to 8. And so with that, there might be a little bit more overtime. People are going to have to flex. Obviously, that's a huge change for a team in a growing business. And so a part of my tactical plan was to really sit down and talk with each team member and kind of ask them, how do you think that this will work? And then also transparency is big, right? Like, how am I going to be transparent with the team? What information can I share? What feedback do I need to get from them? How do I get them to buy in? And then if it doesn't work, right? How do I then explain to my manager that these are the issues we're going to see when we go down a person? So like, I'm thinking through all of this, and that's a part of my tactical plan on how I'm going to execute this initiative that was given to me, right? Like it wasn't my initiative as a part of the manager to eliminate a position, right? I wouldn't come up with that. But it's a plant initiative, and it's something that unfortunately I have to support, but I want to make sure that I'm giving the business exactly what the information they need to make the right decision, right? And the lab team is a part of that conversation. So, I knew as a part of my tactical plan that I'm going to have conversations with each person, that I'm going to ask them these specific questions, that I'm going to get their feedback. And even when we're ready to move into the operational piece, this is the data that I'm going to collect along the way to be able to tell a story and to be able to give a recommendation. So those are the type of things to think through with tactical planning.
Well, and I think that one of the things that I always find important is like, how do we not shoehorn ourselves into a one path?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I like to look at with people is like, what are all the possibilities, even if they are ridiculous and we won't do them? And I think that goes to Tim's point about involving people, because I see things through my lens. Can I step and see things in operations lens? Can I do it from a sales lens? Because, for example, I'm going to pick on shelf life because that's huge in poultry. When we were talking about shifting shelf life or expectations, often we would think about like, we just have to make it better in-house. We have to make it better in-house. And what we learned were there were things, right? Like maybe we need to ship a day earlier, or could we do that? Or does a customer have a different expectation? As a technical person, those weren't always things that came first to mind. And so I think in that tactical stage, having all of those possibilities come together to really be able to kind of evaluate what are those risks, which ones have those, adverse consequences we've never even considered, to bring all of that together. That is the only way we get a well-rounded picture, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. If you have worked through your strategy and your tactical planning, and you haven't talked to a single soul outside of your function, you're probably not doing it right. You really need to have conversations with other people because, our goal is to integrate food safety and quality into the organization. We can't just be a separate function working by itself, because we know it's not going to be successful that way. So I love that. I love it.
And it reminds me, there was, I'm reading this book. Actually, I have it right here. But it's just The Places That Scare You. And the part that's really cool about it is it has this awesome quote in it that says something like, experts see few possibilities, beginners see many possibilities. And the reason it stuck with me is, as a food safety quality leader, I was always expected to just know the answer, or have one or two things, or know how it was supposed to go. And I think from my own perspective, that kind of created a little bit of tunnel vision for me
Mhm.
because I wasn't always open to going outside and broadening that scope because I was the expert. I was supposed to know this is where I was supposed to go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so I
I
think
love that.
it's
I need to write down that book. But I've been following the books you've been reading, right? So I'm
I'll
like,
share it in one of the maybe in the comments for us later.
right.
So anyone
I
else
love
wants
that
to
because
share.
right now I'm reading Cultural Revolution, renovation and
Renovation.
cultural renovation. And one thing that they talk about in the beginning of the book is T-Mobile and their culture renovation, right? Where they, the former CEO kind of said that led T-Mobile through their change was really just like, shut up and listen. You know, listen to your clients, listen to your customers, listen to your team, just as a leader. And you know, we're all leaders on this call, and we're trying to develop our goals and really integrate food safety and quality. A lot of that is just listening to what your team needs, listening to, you know, what your counterparts need. One thing that I found that have worked really well throughout my career is having these conversations either one-on-one or in a group setting, kind of hearing, you know, what do they need, and then being really transparent on, okay, these are the things that we have to do because this is the direction the
Mhm.
organization is going. This is how we can play within those boundaries, and this is what we can suggest. And like watching the ideas kind of flow, because sometimes it's like, man, I don't really want to do this program. We hate it. Sometimes the feedback is, well, the company's paid for it. They're going to
We're
do it.
doing it.
Right. We're doing the program. So we can't get rid of the program, but how we implement the program, or the parts of the program that we use, or the parts that we use first, those are the things that you and your team can influence. And
Mhm.
again, when you're thinking about how do we integrate this technology, or how do we integrate this plan even, or metric, you know, how do we integrate a new metric into the organization, really thinking through those steps on who do I need to talk to, who are my key stakeholders, who are my team members that's going to love it, who are my team members that's going to hate it, and having those conversations, making that a part of your operational plan to have those conversations is extremely important, because that's a huge roadblock down the road on whether or not a goal is going to be successful.
Totally. So Tia, I think what we've talked about so far is strategic plan, like have the vision, like know where you need to go. And then with tactical, really it's about like open those possibilities and get different perspectives so that you can really create a like well-rounded, well-resourced plan before you move into the next phase, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. So the next phase, so we've spent some time kind of talking about like head in the sky, people kind of like this pie in the sky, brainstorming, writing down things that we would like to do and how to do them. Three is really the do it. That's the operational planning stage. And this is where your action plans are very specific.
Mhm.
What are you going to do? You kind of talked about how you're going to do it. This is now what exactly you're going to do, who's going to be the leader, what's the timeline. You know, we've already talked about with strategy and tactical on like, okay, we're thinking about we want to get it done in a year, 2 years. What are other goals? You might have weeded out some things to say, okay, we really can't get this done in a year. Now you know, okay, we've talked through different pieces. I've talked with my key stakeholders. We want to get this done this year. So this is a year goal. In order to get this done, I need Tia to lead this piece. I need Jill to come in and coach my leaders. You know, you start now putting very detailed actions to each of your strategies or your goals. And this is really where people try to jump to first, right? Where they go out and they try to do all these action steps. But if you don't have the roadmap for your action steps, you know, people typically fail.
Mhm.
But this is where we like to live, right? This is the do it stage. We're meeting weekly or bi-weekly. We're collecting the data. We're reviewing the data. We're making changes. We're pivoting. You know, we're seeing the results of our actions.
Mm-hmm. And I think the do it stage is really, right? We all get excited because we want to see what's going to happen. But I also see a lot of, well, how am I going to have time to do that? Like, I know we need to do this, but how do I make time? And that's where, I mean, Tia, and probably everyone on the call, that's where I'm an advocate for workload capacity. Because so often we fill the bucket all the way up with all the normal things we have to do. And now we're trying to put a strategic project on top of that. And when do we know that we are not setting our team up for success because we're putting them in that space?
Mm.
And I think the only way we can do that is by having that data. We need to know, am I at 80% capacity or am I at 200? It's the same thing we would do if we were scheduling product to run down the line. We know we have to stay within the line capacity. And so that's where I really like to challenge people to say, how are you moderating capacity for your team? Because I mean, we've all been there, right? Where you're like, I've got one more thing on top of me and I'm treading water.
Right.
How do we help so people can be strong swimmers?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point on why it's so important that you do steps 1 and 2 before you get to step 3, which we all are familiar with, which is the doing it, right? You want to make sure you're doing steps 1 and 2 to understand what your capacity is, to understand, okay, we're going to have to put these action steps down and we're going to have to do it. Do we have the right people on the team to actually do it? And those 1 and 2 are, I mean, that's really where you figure out if you're going to be able to do it and execute it the way that the way that you should, and if you're going to hit your goals. One great example of this that I see in my career is that someone wants to roll out a new technology, and it's a technology that fits across all categories. So like think about like an ERP program. A lot of times people are like, we want to onboard it in 6 months. Well, everyone on the call that is listening in that's rolled out an ERP program, 6 months, 6 to 9 months is a very aggressive goal. That means you don't have a lot of time to do the strategic planning or the tactical planning. And you're jumping into the doing. In my past, what I've seen is that companies try to jump into the doing and then they realize, oh, the person that is executing a large piece of the work also has another job to do. And so we're slowing down because this person's name is on almost every step of the operational plan, but they also have a job that they were doing that they were already over capacity at. So it's, so that slows you down, not thinking through how you're going to integrate it into a team that's never seen an ERP program. If you don't have action steps to get people acquainted and trained and trialed, and you try to jump into doing it, most of the time you're not going to be using the program long term because people don't understand how to use it. And so that's what I've seen where, if you try to jump into the do it stage, then you'll find yourself stopping and starting, pushing back dates, because you're trying to do step 1 and 2 within the doing, and it never works. It just, it never works.
Well, one of the things that I think early on I wasn't comfortable with, because once again, as the expert, I was supposed to know the answers, was part of that leveraging other people that we talked about. But I'm even going to take that one step further, because when we found the most success is when we played, it's a lean term, right? Catch ball. It's, we have this idea, now I'm going to throw it over to somebody else or to my team to say, what do you think? And then they throw ideas back to me and we reshape and reform this and we mold it. And we keep doing this process so that when we get to the do it stage, we have a really clear picture of what are the resources? Have we made space? Do we need to build technical skills? But what I found is that when we miss those steps and try to kind of create that in a vacuum, all with good intent, that's when like the wheels fell off. And Corey, I know you've got the car thing in there, right?
I
Kind of
love
like
it.
the transmission wasn't moving us forward because, we didn't go around and do all the checks to see was everything ready and working and ready to roll. And I think sometimes, at least what I've heard and what I've experienced is as a leader, because I thought I was supposed to know, and I'm supposed to know what my team's doing. I'm supposed to know where all their skills are. I'm supposed to know how it's supposed to all fit together. That I missed that early on in my career.
Yeah.
And when I figured that out, man, that made it a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah, I know me starting my career, I had a great foundation around those processes,
Mm.
and we really had great team meetings, and we made sure that most of our team meetings, if not all of them, included at least one person from each function that was impacted. And so that's really nice, and that's really where I learned the whole foundation on, like, you need representatives from each parts of the organization to be integrated as a full cross-functional team. So I had the opposite experience early on, where we really did have great team dynamics and integration of food safety and quality. And then throughout my career, especially moving into the startup industry, where they really just don't have the resources. Their
Mhm.
operations team is doing everything until they bring in someone from food safety and a maintenance resource or an engineering resource. Before then, they really just have operations, and they're trying their best to keep things moving. So, I've experienced the flip flop, where I've gone to an organization and, they're not, they've never seen anything work like a well-oiled machine, right? And so me integrating those things into the organization was really important for me, because it helps with the way that we do work, right? But it also saves on time and energy. And you end up getting your goals completed, right?
Mhm.
You're not fighting fires. You're actually creating goals and getting them done. So I
Yeah.
love that.
Well, I think that's a really big part because, right, we all understand the importance of planning. Um, and we know that it takes a lot of time to do it the way that we want to do it, to have the results that we want, to have people involved. And I think where I see that we have some of the hurdles is we get kind of pulled back into doing some routine work or some firefighting, and we try to cut those parts. Well, we don't try. Those parts seem to get cut short on us.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's where I think about, having, whether it's the organization or someone on your team or even someone outside, like, who do you have as an accountability partner to be able to do that? And in fact, I would even here, I'm going to share our email because, if you want to email us one of your goals at the hello@foodsafetykatalyst.com, throughout the year, we will email you nudges and tips about how the planning process is going to kind of help you move forward with those goals that you have.
Yeah.
Because the only thing we want your success just as much as anybody's success, because we are better together. And it takes all of us to be able to move in that direction and try things different and break us out of our old routines and habits. Otherwise, we just drift back in.
Right. Absolutely. So when we think about those three steps, creating a strategic plan, creating your technical plan, and then moving to your operational plan, and executing that, it's so important. And when Jill talks about having the accountability partner, I found that that's really big for me, and it was big for me throughout my career, where someone keeps me on track so that I don't try to skip steps, right? Like, I don't try to go to doing before I build my tactical plan, because someone's asking me, well, Tia, you put this down, but how are you going to do it? Have you thought through how? Have you thought through your barriers, your roadblocks? How are you going to eliminate those? Have you thought through these things? Having that accountability partner is so important. And, to be honest, before I moved into the startup world, I really didn't think about having an outside expert, mainly because we had a lot of experts internally. But at that point, in my career where I went into startup world, it's like, man, there's so many experts out here that can help me understand pieces of my plan and really help me develop a good plan to execute for my team. So, they really have helped me get over my hump and help me create a plan forward to help propel my team to the next level, integrate those goals into the business the way that I really want them to, so that I can hit those goals, right? We would definitely love for you to email us and let us know what goals you're thinking about this year. And then we'll be that accountability partner for you. We'll send you, like Jill said, nuggets and tips throughout the year and really help you stay on track and think about those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as we're going forward, Tim, I see you've got a great question, because this seems to be a hurdle everyone runs into.
Mm-hmm.
Stuck in firefighting, and how do we change that? So I'll share my thoughts, and then I'd love to hear what others say in Tia. But I think when we talk about firefighting, first we have to start thinking about mindset. Because if we see everything as a fire, it's a fire.
Mm-hmm.
If we can start seeing everything as like, wow, this is exciting, I can make change here, or I can do some other good work here, or this is telling us there's a problem over here that we didn't know. I think first it helps to start shifting in our mindset. And I'll be the first to say that is not easy, right? When it's 8 o'clock on a Friday and you're still dealing with the fire that somebody kind of knew about on Monday morning, believe me, not happy about it. But it also, I think, gives us the opportunity to say, okay, how are we going to make this different? And at least when I was doing this back at Golden Plum with my team, we were constantly in firefighting mode. And really what we had to do was figure out what parts were we willing to let go. Because we each found that we had things that we wanted to hang on to and we thought we had to do. But really what was happening is then they were important to get done, but it also didn't give us enough capacity. So what we did was kind of navigate through what we needed to let go, but we did it in a very systematic way. We did it through workload capacity. That then was the data that we could use to go back to plant managers, to directors, to VPs to say, hey, look, we've got our quality team over in this facility. Like, they're working 8, 10, 15 hours of overtime every week, every single one. Like, that's crazy. Like, at what point do we invest in, cut down on the overtime pay and hire someone so we have more bench strength, so we have more backup, so we can build our team and stop firefighting as much?
Yeah.
But it didn't happen overnight. It took us months to walk through this, and months of talking with internal stakeholders about what we were doing, why we were doing it, what we needed from them, so that we could slowly start shifting out of firefighting.
Yeah. I love that example. Most of my career has been in a plant culture. And so what I found with firefighting is that a process is either lacking or we're not following the process. And so what I found is that if we're in firefighting mode, and I like to look at, well, what are we firefighting? Pick what you have and then develop a process around what people should do when they're in those situations, so that they're following a process versus, oh, there's a fire, go put it out. Oh, there's a fire, go put it out. And like Jill said, that's hard to do, because even if you develop a process, the process is only as good as the people following it.
Mm-hmm.
So the hard part is getting them to follow the process. And so what I found, a really good example is that people would call quality, all times a night. There were some nights that I got 2 hours of sleep, got a phone call. Got 2 hours of sleep, got a phone call. So I wasn't a happy camper during that time. I got a phone call every day for like a month. And we realized that, okay, we need to build in a better process where people can make decisions. And we had lab techs on site on the off shift. So how do we put in a process so that we can empower our lab techs to make the decisions for us that, they really didn't need us for it. So I remember in one specific situation, we put in a process. We said, hey, you contact the lab. If you have this type of issue, lab, this is what you follow. If you need more help, then you call. And I remember for the first week, the very first week, I still got phone calls from the operations team. So they were basically bypassing the lab, still trying to follow the old process, trying to pull me back into firefighting. But what I decided to do is to not answer the call. So I saw them calling. I did not answer. And then moments later, the lab will call me. I'll answer their call, right? Because that's the process. And then we'll walk through, okay, the lab, of course, is saying they're not listening to me. This is what I'm telling them. They want to hear it from you. And then so I would tell the lab, and then the lab will tell them, right? And then they'll follow the process. And then eventually they kind of got into the path of like, okay, Tia's not going to answer her phone call. She's going to make me listen to the lab tech on site. And over time, that's exactly what happened. The calls died down. Actually, the relationship between operations and the lab got better, because now they have this actual communication happening with each other every night, working through issues. They saw that the solutions that they were presenting, that I wasn't going back and changing them or overriding them when I got in the morning. They were really creating that culture with themselves to solve issues so that they don't feel like they're always in firefighting mode. So that was something that was really helpful for me in my sleep, but also helpful for the team to build a stronger connection and really think about what's happening. And I mean, they even had ideas on how to eliminate the issues that we were seeing. And then those issues went away. So now there's no more fires in that category. So that's what I would say on how to really get a plant culture out of firefighting mode, is really to get your process going and then stick to the process, even if it's hard.
Tia, I love that. And you know what? As you were talking, I thought we could probably do an entire LinkedIn Live on firefighting and giving some tips on how to do that, because part of that is also creating as a plan. Like, our intention is to move away from firefighting. Right. And how do we do that? Part of that flows through the plan we just talked about today, with the strategic planning, your tactical planning, and then also the operational side of it.
So. Absolutely. I mean, and to Felix's point, firefighting is the evidence of a scattered approach. Absolutely. There's no real process there. And people are either, again, they don't know the process, or they're not following the process.
Yep. So, or trust.
Right. So. Or trust. Exactly. Exactly. So that's big. Thanks, Tim, for your question. If you have any other questions out there, please feel free to mention them in the comments. We have a couple more minutes. We would love for you to send us an email. Also schedule some time with us, if you want to talk more about how to set up your plans for the new year or into the future. Again, you should really be looking at long-term strategy to make sure that you're on track for what your vision is. For Catalyst, we have a signature program called the Elemental Change Program. And it's really the only holistic program that incorporates building leaders, integrating teams, and positioning the food safety function as a business partner. So that's really building that sustainable food safety culture, starting with you as the food safety and quality expert, and then integrating what you know and the skills that you've built for yourself and your team into the organization. Because again, a lot of this planning work your company is already doing. If food safety and quality is not an integrated business partner, then you are missing out on doing these steps. Or sometimes even some of our clients, they don't have a process for this for any part of their organization. So food safety and quality are really the leaders on how you plan, and how you build out goals for this year and next. So set up some time with us or send us an email. We'll make sure that we add your email to our VIP subscriber list so you're the first to know about the things that Catalyst is doing. We're super excited about Catalyst. A lot of you guys were on our first kickoff webinar on November 30th. So we're super excited about the future and how we can help organizations build their organization, their food safety and quality organization, and integrate it into their business and building their team members, right? Mm-hmm. From a technical and leadership standpoint.
Absolutely. Well, Tia and everybody on with us, thank you so much. Our first LinkedIn Live. And we are excited because we'll be doing this, like I said, every Wednesday, noon Eastern time. And if you have any topics you'd like us to cover, once again, shoot them over. We've got a list, but we are happy to do this because it's for you and it's with you. Yeah. And so we look forward to hearing more and hopefully seeing you next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And Felix, I see your question. What is the goal of Real Talk Food Safety with Tia and Jill? You know, the big thing, we kind of covered this early on, is that we want to have more conversations around food safety and quality with our peers. And we're here to bring you different topics like planning, which is today, but also how do you build those technical skills, firefighting. You know, I think that's a great topic to talk about in the future, and start having these talks around what's happening in our arena, how we can help each other. You know, a lot of people that's on the call right now, you know, you have resources that people need. You have thoughts and you are an expert that people need. So, you know, talk in the comments, share in the comments, ask questions in the comments, because we're super excited about this, and that's what we want to do. We want to tackle food safety and quality topic by topic and just share with one another.
Yeah, and to add to that, not just the technical side, because we know all of you are technical experts as well.
Yes.
The part that we want to bring in as well is the well-being and the mindset and some of those other parts that we don't often talk about that are some of the underlying factors that influence everything else.
Right.
That's part of the culture. Those things that we know are there, but we can't often name. And those are the things that help us move forward collectively together.
Absolutely. And that's a huge point around, especially around leadership, communication, mindset. You know, how many people do we know that's like, man, they know everything about HACCP, but they cannot get their team to do it. You know, the barrier is not in the technical knowledge. The barrier is around leadership, communication, and even how to influence the mindset on their teams. Those are the things we want to dive even deeper into. And those are the things that we really focus on with Catalyst, is that, you know, a lot of the times our clients have staff with great backgrounds, right? Great technical knowledge. It's just how do you get people to that's never going to have the technical knowledge that you have? How do you get them to execute the programs, understand the why behind the programs, and again, integrate it into your organization?
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next Wednesday, and have a good rest of the week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.